she's hearing in her family that, oh, it hurts, it's supposed to hurt,
Yes.
it's supposed to be painful.
Yes.
And then we are not taught that sex can actually be pleasurable.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's traumatic. It's absolutely traumatic for the human mind too.
Yes.
But we don't teach that to boys.
Yes. Very true, very true. There's such a big difference between the information that boys get and girls get. The very first, I often say the very first exposure to a sexual act in India is news of sexual assault, right? There is no one around this girl who can give her this perspective that, beta, this is not sex, this is sexual violence. These are two opposite acts. Sex is consensual, it's respectful, it's pleasurable, it sustains your boundaries. Sexual assault is not consensual, not respectful, violates your boundaries. These are opposite acts, even though they are done through the same area, but the acts are opposite. Sex is not equal to sexual violence. This context is not given to this girl, right? And in absence of this context, it's a beautiful gift of nature, that sex is a beautiful gift of nature. When such conversations just not happening, and all she hears 24/7 is newspapers just playing up news of sexual assault repeatedly, then the mind just records danger, danger, danger. We don't really understand why vaginismus occurs to women, right? And it's not really very clearly described even in our medical textbooks. Vaginismus or vaginismus is actually a psychosomatic condition.
Right.
Psychosomatic means, psycho means mind, soma means body. Psychosomatic means a condition that has its roots in the mind-body connection, right? So if you actually go to get yourself examined, if you have vaginismus, you'll be absolutely fine.
Yes.
You'll come out hearing that, hey, everything is okay.
Yeah.
That's because your vagina is absolutely fine. What's happening is your mind is sending a signal to the vagina, don't allow this to happen, right? Your vagina is happy to expand because your vagina is a very stretchable organ. It's almost like a rubber band. It stretches so beautifully, but instead of stretching and opening, it's becoming like this. And why is it doing that? No muscle in our body has a brain of its own. Even if I have to lift a finger, a signal has to come from the brain that says lift the finger. So my muscles of the vagina are shutting down because my mind is perceiving this penetration
as a threat.
As threatening. Now, why is penetration threatening? I love this man. I want to do it. So the answer to this contraction is not here in this minute. The answer is in your past. Something in the growing up years, or in the when the girl was being nurtured to become a woman, something has happened. Either she's seen something, either she's heard something, or either she's experienced something that convinced the mind, oh my God, this is dangerous.
Very unsafe.
Right? Just as a 2-year-old will easily put his hand in boiling water. He doesn't know what is boiling water. But when he's going there, everyone will scream, danger! And he stops. Similarly, the body has been very boldly in the growing up years has heard this danger. And so it has got so deeply impregnated in the subconscious mind that even if not even the penis, if just a finger is coming close, danger. And the doors shut, as if there is a Pakistani soldier at the LOC and Narendra Modi will say, close the door. And so the LOC will shut. So vagina shutting down is because the higher ups are saying this is dangerous and it's shutting down.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong here, right? And it's inherently a protective body response. Your body is trying to protect you. So let's not be too angry with our body, right? It's not a disease. It's not a dysfunction. It's not a disorder. It's not an illness. It is simply an exaggerated protective body response. Our body has forgotten that the dangerous incident was 10 years ago. Probably at that time I needed protection, but not today. Right? So our body is overdoing the protection.
Right.
And we just have to sit down with ourselves and literally remind our body, this moment is safe. Even if that moment was unsafe, this moment is safe.
Absolutely.
And hence, vaginismus is not a physical condition, it's a
psychological condition which is manifesting on the body.
So Dr. Taru, since the topic of this podcast is how our minds play games on us and with us, what are some of the mind games regarding vaginismus that you have come across?
Okay, so to think of some very irrational beliefs that are being spread in our country, and they're like cultural phenomenons. It's being passed on from generations to generations without ever questioning whether there is science behind it, right? So I always tell my clients, think of science, don't think of opinions and judgments. So the first thing is the virginity phenomenon, or the phenomenon of hymen breaking on the first night and causing bleeding and pain, right? So let's just get to the hymen thing. Okay, so what is the hymen? Hymen is just like a very thin membranous tissue at the opening of the vagina, which has a hole so that your period blood can come out. Your hymen is a very thin tissue. It hardly has that resistance power to resist the penis from going inside, right? In fact, hymen is a very elastic membranous tissue. So your hymen is not the reason for vaginismus. A lot of people think that, oh, I have an intact hymen, that's why I have vaginismus. Untrue. Your hymen comes in many varieties. Okay, there are different types of hymens, but most of the hymens look like this membranous grayish tissue with one hole in between. And most of the times, this will wear out, stretch out and disappear by the time you come into your first sexual intercourse, right? So it might not even be there.
Yeah, I've read that if you do excessive running, if you're a sports person or you're just a very active person, you walk a lot, even then
So like we squat in an Indian potty, right? And you're squatting and you're stretching it just like your old t-shirt over a period of 15 years will stretch out, thin out and wear out, right? And the moment you just poke a finger, it will probably just
disintegrate
and tear. Right. That's the same with the hymen. Wow. It just stretches out, wears out over time, and many women may not have a hymen even though they are virgins. Many women may have a hymen even though they have completed penetration, because it's so elastic that the penis will still go in with the intact hymen. So your hymen, first of all, is not a proof of virginity. Secondly, your hymen cannot be the reason you have vaginismus. Wow. It might be there, it might not be there. Not a big deal at all as far as vaginal intercourse is concerned. There are only a few varieties of hymens that do cause some disruption or do cause an issue with penetration. So for example, it's microperforate hymen or septate hymen, or cribriform hymen. These are very rare varieties that might actually need a hymen surgery to open it up, right? Now, what I have seen is a lot of women who come to us with vaginismus have already had hymen surgeries done, but none of them have actually helped in actually consummating the relationship, which just shows that there are a lot of unnecessary hymen surgeries being done. Only these 3 varieties needed, but I think we're overdoing this surgery. So hymen is not the reason. Even if you cut open the hymen, your vagina is still going to contract. The issue is the vaginal muscle contraction and not a physical block. So that's the first mind game that we have to be aware of. The second thing is hymen doesn't have nerves. No nerves in that tissue, and hence the first night pain that people talk about is not because of the hymen.
Wow, that's
0 nerves.
Wow.
Right? The next thing to know is your hymen hardly has any blood vessels. Even if it has, it's like very streak-like, thin, few blood vessels. Most of the women who've healed in our program, because they're also penetrating the first time with their fingers and dilators, have never reported any bleeding, because probably they didn't have any hymen, or even if they have, they didn't even notice any bleeding. So the kind of even books or novels we've read about, oh, there was a pool of blood on the bed and then the mother-in-law understood that it has happened, it's all nonsense, because your hymen cannot bleed like that.
I think this is very similar. I mean, obviously we were on topic off camera about how this conversation was created, this rumor was created, misconception was created, because earlier child marriage was legal, right? So girls as young as 5, 6 were married off to men who are twice, thrice their ages, and they had sexual needs, and these girls did not achieve sexual puberty. And to make sure that the consummation was happening, they forced it, that this was a kind of marital rape that was happening. And to sort of normalize it, they were making these rumors or misconceptions that, you're supposed to bleed and it's supposed to be painful, where it's actually not. It's
wow.
It's horrible.
That's a perspective I haven't heard before. Okay, great. So it just shows that even if your hymen will bleed, most people won't notice it. Even if you notice it, our patients have sent an image of their dilator with just one streak of blood. That's how it bleeds. It does not bleed like a pool of blood. People don't even notice it because it's painless. And it never comes back. Maximum, it might just come back once more because your hymen is stretching every time you put a bigger dilator.
Right.
So that's the thing to remember, and it should be there in 10 standard textbooks, that your hymen is an nervous tissue, does not have nerves, cannot hurt, hardly ever bleeds because of very thin streak-like blood vessels, right? And hymen cannot block penetration. Now, why is this myth of bleeding? The bleeding can only happen if this woman was, instead of being relaxed, she was contracting her vagina just like women with vaginismus. She was not aroused, there was no lubrication, and this guy was forcing through. Now what will happen is there will be friction, and there will be bleeding from the vagina because of those micro injuries in the vagina. That is not a hymenal bleed, that's a vaginal bleed that has occurred because of friction, of a very intercourse that has friction, a lot of friction, and it will also cause pain. So this first night pains and bleeds is because this woman wasn't aroused, she was scared, and the penetration still went through, right? Now this is the narrative that has been spread across.
Absolutely.
If we give a counter narrative to this, which is more scientific, that nature cannot be a fool to make this act a painful act, because that's the act on which the future of humanity depends. Procreation is the result of this act. It cannot make it painful, because if it makes it painful, people are gonna abscond from their homes every night. But that's not true, because India has the largest population in the world. And so nature ensures that the mechanics of this act has to be 100% smooth. Just as the penis undergoes erection and balloons out, do you think the vagina can remain so small like a tiny hole? It cannot. Your vagina also undergoes erection. Normally the vagina is 1 inch wide and 3 to 4 inches long.
Okay, can you show it to the camera?
When the vagina is non-aroused, it remains like a 1 inch wide vagina diameter wise, which is 2.5 centimeters, 3 to 4 inches long. This is a non-aroused vagina. In front of this, if you have an erect penis, yes, mismatch of sizes. And if it forces through, no lubrication, no space, pain and friction. And this is being propagated everywhere, non-aroused woman penetrating with the aroused guy. But this is not the design of nature. Nature wanted to ensure that he's also aroused and erect, you're also aroused and erect. So this 1 inch wide entry becomes a 1.5 inch wide entrance after arousal. 1.5 inches at the entrance is nothing but 3.8 centimeters.
Wow.
What is the size of an average erect penis in India? 3.6.
Wow.
Which is smaller than the size of the entrance of the vagina after arousal. And when it goes inside, there is a lot of lubrication created here, which is like an oil for the machine, right? The 3 to 4 inch balloons out to a 5 to 6 inch length vagina, 5 to 6 inch length. The back end becomes 2.5 inches, which is 6 centimeters. The back end is 6 centimeters, penis is only 3.6. It's gonna float inside. So vaginal erection ensures the space, ensures the lubrication, right? So this is the design of nature, only if she's aroused. Now the issue is, probably women are not getting aroused because of fear on the first night, just like they've heard everyone say this, and probably the guy doesn't know how to arouse her or what to do. So here we have an erection, here we have fear, and that's why the pain, that's why the bleeding. let's remember the concept of vaginal erection. There is space, there is lubrication.
I think it's called vaginal tenting, like you.
Yeah, so technically in science we call it vaginal tenting because it tents out like a tent. But I like to call it vaginal erection because that really brings home the message that just as he can get erect, I can get erect, I have the space. Actually, it becomes bigger than the penis. That's the first thing to know. So your vaginal first night bleeding and pain is not because of hymen or anything else. It's because of lack of enough arousal. Let's just teach men and women in their college about this and teach men what are erogenous zones, what is pleasure zones, how to pleasure a woman. And it's not just about your erection, it's also about her erection. And then the conversations around this would change. Women would grow up thinking that, oh wow, I have the space, I have the power as well. Now, vagina is actually just like this crunchy here. You know, this is like the vulva and this is like the hole. It looks really small from outside, but it's actually very elastic. It can expand to 9 centimeter to deliver a baby's head during delivery. It expands to 6 centimeter during arousal at the back end. It expands to 3.8 centimeters during arousal at the front end. Penis is only 3.6 centimeter. So it's like a rubber band. It will do what it has to do. But instead of this, we are making the vagina do this, right? So our body has the right hardware, right software, the right design to make this happen. But this counter argument is just not going out. It has to go out in our science textbooks. Why are we teaching women about the uterus before we teach her about the vulva? We are directly inside the body. We have to talk about the entrance of the body, the vulva. We have to talk about the clitoris. The clitoris, do you know, is almost a 12 centimeter long organ in the body with legs on both sides. We only think of it as a little pea-like organ, but it's 10 to 12 centimeters long. Clitoris can get erect just like the penis, right? In fact, the clitoris is the sister of the penis. The clitoris and the penis came from the same area. So clitoral erection, vaginal erection is the design. So these are some mind games that our country is still struggling to work with. And lastly, this concept of you providing sex. You know, women are just told about the vagina and not about the clitoris. Your clitoris is your main sexual organ, just as the penis is his main sexual organ, right? And the clitoris needs arousal just as the penis needs arousal. But we are only talking about the vagina. Do you know the vagina hardly has any nerves? It only has nerves in the first inch, right? Whatever orgasms or pleasure you're going to get, it's through the clitoris. So the conversation have to be around clitoris and not around the vagina as much. But we are obsessed with the vagina, and hence women with vaginismus are obsessed with vaginismus. They don't see that they are fully capable sexual human beings even with the clitoris.
Absolutely.
Right? So the conversations have to move to this hidden organ of the clitoris rather than moving so much around the vagina. Because it's a very patriarchal view of the woman's body to just look at the vagina, because that's what we need for intercourse, right, with the guy. But the clitoris on top of it is the main pleasure organ for the woman.
Absolutely. You told me that in medical textbooks, clitoris was never labeled also.
Yes, so I don't think I ever saw the female, the vulval diagram in our textbooks having the clitoris being named. Rest of the things would be named. We'll be obsessed with talking about the vagina. But where is the clitoris?
Wow.
Right?
Unbelievable.
This is called as cliliteracy.
Cliliteracy. That's superb. So you have your podcast, you have your YouTube page, you also have the program, Vaginismus Healing Support Group. What success stories would you like to share? You know, maybe one or two.
Yeah. There's so many. I'm actually
obviously 212 success stories.
Struggling to think of one, but I can remember this one girl who's an Indian but based out of a country, based abroad. She said how she learned to have fear of strangers. Right? That was her main issue when we were talking about emotional healing. Fear of strangers, that strangers are harmful. Where did this come from? Nirbhaya incident. Where did that come from? Some girls in her building's lift getting assaulted. Where did that come from? A guy who was, being sexually assaulting women in her colony. So right from her age of 6 or 7, she's been constantly hearing about strangers being dangerous to girls, and she hearing messages like don't ever go out alone, or don't go out in lifts where there are strangers, or don't take cabs at night time. So there were constant messages of danger. And then she has an arranged marriage. She gets married to a stranger. How can she relax in her presence? Even though she told me that later on I realized he was a very loving partner. So currently I'm safe with him, but my body is still preoccupied with messages of unsafety. Unsafe. Sex is unsafe, right? So we had to work through that and really heal all these 3-4 memories of her childhood. And as she started to heal, her dilators just smoothly started to go in. She was astonished that she completed the entire dilator set in 3 weeks.
Wow, amazing.
Just 3 weeks. In the 4th week, we went ahead with vaginal penetration. Of course, it went in the first shot.
Wow.
Usually, women who've done the vaginal dilation and emotional healing well, first penetration just happens either in the first, second, third attempt. And usually, the response I get on my WhatsApp is, "Doctor, I cannot believe it. My partner is saying it's in. I just can't feel it. I'm not sure." So it is that painless that they can't even feel it going inside, and they refuse to believe they have healed, right? And it takes them a few attempts for them to know that yes, it's done.
And that's why your thing in the program is not just zero pain but also pleasure.
Yes. So she moves from the first, obviously the first few experiences are about zero pain. Then as she starts to relax that yes, there's going to be no pain, the hesitation, anticipation goes away, then she starts to explore her pleasure as well, right? So she had literally 9 years of vaginismus.
Wow.
9 years of vaginismus healed in 4 weeks.
Amazing.
And 9 years spent with so much pain and misery, and literally being jealous of other women getting pregnant, not wanting to go to baby showers. And here she is, healed in just 4 weeks. And this is online. I didn't even touch her. I didn't assist her in anything physically. She did it herself. The wisdom of her own body helped her do it. And this is the beauty of healing vaginismus, that things change so fast. And you don't just heal penetration, you heal so many things in her past. And that's why some woman had said, when you heal vaginismus, it's not just penetration that you get back.
You heal your
You
life.
get back your whole life. They start to feel confident. They start to do things they've never done before. Women who never wanted to go swimming or learn swimming, they learn swimming, they go trekking, they did things, they quit jobs, they did things because they found their self-worth again, which was lost, right? So this is a journey actually to reclaim your whole life back. It's not just about penetration. And the wholesome structure of it, which addresses pleasure, which addresses harmony with the partner, which addresses partner's emotions, addresses the traumatic past. So women actually come out feeling like, oh, it's been like a rebirth. It's not just vaginismus. One last thing I'd like to say is, when we end our program and I ask women in the last support group, what have you gained in these 8 weeks? Without exception, it has happened that they narrate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things: greater self-esteem, greater self-confidence, knowledge of my body, greater self-worth, partner harmony, and stuff like that. And they almost always forget to mention penetration. They forget this was the thing they came for, and they almost forget to mention it because it almost becomes the 8th or the 9th thing in the list. There's so many other things she's
Grateful for. That's
Yes.
amazing.
And I've been so grateful, and I don't know what, that nature kind of picked me to do this, because I'm very sure if I didn't have vaginismus, I would never have worked on vaginismus myself. So there was a reason as a gynaec I had vaginismus, probably because that would I'm probably the right person then to work on it.
Absolutely.
So I'm very grateful that women have trusted me, and our program and Proactive for Her was there to, you know, host it. So I'm just very, very grateful for the opportunity to work on this.
That's amazing. So if you have some words for our listeners and viewers, if there's a person who has vaginismus, their partner or themselves who's struggling with vaginismus, what message do you have for them?
The first thing is there is hope, right? There is hope because this is an inherent software in your body. It's your design. It's just that because of some traumas of the past, your body has forgotten it. It is not going to take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to heal this. If you are committedly doing it, it will be done in an average time of 2 to 3 months. Let's not waste time in any more struggles, in any more doubts. Just come forward and ask for help. Proactive for Her's website is available online. You can just get to their Vaginismus webpage and reach out to us for a first consultation, in which we first diagnose vaginismus online by asking you questions. And once you're confirmed with the diagnosis, we enroll you into the upcoming batch. We have a new batch starting every 1 month. Like I said, we've healed around 212 women so far. You can also be in that group. Nothing prevents you from being in that group, and all your joys can be yours again. I'm also available on Instagram, so you can also reach out to me.
I will be posting all these links in the description, so you can reach out to Dr. Taru, you can reach out to Proactive for Her and be a part of the support group. And I will also put the link of your podcast and YouTube so that people can research more about this.
This is in spite of the fact that this woman really, really wants to do it. So the highlight of the condition is that she really wants it, but a part of her body is saying no. So it's almost like a tug of war inside her body. A part of it is saying yes, a part of it is saying no. And that's the whole confusing part of it, because this woman just doesn't understand what's going on because she's not able to control it. This happens because the moment something comes near the vagina, her body goes into an involuntary contraction. Her vagina goes into an involuntary means not in her control. The vagina just shuts down, or there is a spasm, right? Even in spite of the fact that just minutes before she was highly aroused, she really wanted to go through it, but suddenly there is a wall. The way women describe this condition is, I was so happy, I wanted to do this, I was excited, but something suddenly happened at the minute of penetration that it felt like my thighs were clenching, my body was stressed, I suddenly didn't want to do it, my vagina was just closing up, it felt like a wall. My partner just said, there's just no space. It felt like there was no space, the vagina was too small. The more we pushed, the more it hurt. And finally, after a few attempts, they just abandon the whole process, right? And they do it as more and more times, the same thing keeps happening.
Right.
And in fact, the contraction keeps worsening with time. And a point comes when they just stop trying intercourse, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not just intercourse that they stop. After some years of vaginismus, even sex stops, even foreplay stops, because there is so much disappointment covered in this one act that they just don't want to get there, right? And a lot of people say after 2 years or 3 years of this condition, they actually start living as friends or as roommates in one room, right? And just not going there, right? A lot of times it's very perplexing because we can't really see a cause here, right? The guy is also confused what's happening because both want to do it. This girl is also confused, and sometimes the guy starts to question, does she really love me? Does she want to do it? Is there something wrong with me that she doesn't like? Is she having an affair? So lots of doubts start to come up. This girl starts to lose confidence in herself, because we all have been brought up to believe that our main job is study, get married, have a good family where you nurture a baby, bring up a baby. So sex and childbirth are literally the foundations or the main identities of a woman. So if you can't do this, then who are you? Right? So it's almost like an identity crisis for this girl. She starts losing confidence, starts thinking, oh, everyone is doing it. Why can't I do this? And that slowly starts to eat up on her, on her self-confidence, her self-esteem. She starts to feel inadequate. She starts to feel broken, right? And this affects her personality, and that personality change impacts the relationship. Sometimes more than the vaginismus issue, what's impacting the relationship is the change in her personality, the deterioration of her mental health as a result of vaginismus. And that's often the cocktail of disappointment in sexual life, changed personalities, frustration, fights, that ultimately often leads in divorce and separations, right? The guy often tries to be very supportive, because these days urban guys have seen a lot of equality. So they really try to support and really be there for the woman, saying that, hey, it's you that's more important to me. But as years progress, he starts to feel, I didn't sign up for this. How many years? And he starts to lose hope. And one day, they find themselves as strangers. Often this happens. And hence, vaginismus is not just a sexual issue. It becomes a relationship issue soon.
Wow.
There was a woman I had met, or who I was working with. She said, when I had vaginismus, it did not just take away sexual penetration for me. It took away my whole life. And when I healed vaginismus, I didn't just get back sexual penetration. I got back my whole life.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so empowering. So Dr. Taru, I have heard your podcast. I binged heard it, and I found the topic extremely interesting. The name is also very empowering. Vaginismus, Stories of Healing and Hope. So in that, you share how it is an emotional issue and not like a physical actual issue, and that's what you explained right now. I want to understand, how many women in India do you think, percentage wise, are suffering from vaginismus, primary or secondary?
So we don't really have true statistics, right? Because no one really actually reports vaginismus. So casually, if I have to say, it could be anywhere between maybe 5-7% to even maybe 20-30%, right? We don't really know the true statistics, but in my estimate, or in the estimates I have read in the research articles, it could be anywhere in this zone. Now, vaginismus, like I was talking, that it's a psychosomatic condition. Some people don't really understand what that means. So let us just try and identify what could be those factors that actually cause vaginismus later in life. Right. So if I have to say, what is vaginismus? Vaginismus is a story of pain and shame. Wow. Right? These are the two words that we have to remember: pain and shame. If this girl has grown up listening to stories of pain during intercourse, or if she's heard that this is something that's shameful, dirty, good girls don't do it, then it's so deeply recorded in her subconscious that forever her body will behave as if this is dangerous, this is shameful. So let's just take some examples. So many girls have heard growing up that first night hurts, it bleeds, right? If you've heard something so dangerous about penetration, how on earth is your body ever going to allow you to do it, right? It's almost like an injection. We all are scared of injections, right? No matter how much you tell yourself that COVID shot is good for me, but when you're going there, you're having some hesitation, and when that nurse is filling the syringe, you're scared, right? That's exactly what happens. Your body treats it like an injection, a painful procedure, and we don't want any pain to happen to us. So your body is already ready, sending signals to the vagina of the signals are of threat, danger, close the door.
Absolutely.
Right? So the highlight of vaginismus is the anxiety just before the act. Right? This nervousness and hesitation that happens before. Some other examples of pain could be excessive coverage of news of sexual abuse in media. Now they have to be reported 100%, 10%. But when you have zero sex education and you have 150% coverage of sexual abuse, then what tends to happen is a little 10-year-old girl who's hearing news of maybe the Nirbhaya episode that happened records this, oh my God, this is dangerous. Because there is no counter argument that sex is pleasurable. She only records this is dangerous.
And she's hearing in her family that, oh, it hurts, it's supposed to hurt,
Yes.
it's supposed to be painful.
Yes.
And then we are not taught that sex can actually be pleasurable.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's traumatic. It's absolutely traumatic for the human mind too.
Yes.
But we don't teach that to boys.
Yes. Very true, very true. There's such a big difference between the information that boys get and girls get. The very first, I often say the very first exposure to a sexual act in India is news of sexual assault, right? There is no one around this girl who can give her this perspective that, beta, this is not sex, this is sexual violence. These are two opposite acts. Sex is consensual, it's respectful, it's pleasurable, it sustains your boundaries. Sexual assault is not consensual, not respectful, violates your boundaries. These are opposite acts, even though they're done through the same area, but the acts are opposite. Sex is not equal to sexual violence. This context is not given to this girl, right? And in absence of this context, beautiful gift of sexuality, that sex is a beautiful gift of nature, then such conversations just not happening, and all she hears 24/7 is newspapers just playing up news of sexual assault repeatedly, then the mind just records danger, danger, danger.